Okay, so the site that I'm reviewing for this assignment is called Reading is Resistance. Social Justice Education. So Reading is Resistance is an organization started by parents and educators. Let me bring up their file. Zipporah Newton Calvert and Farnell Newton. Now they're both educators at Portland State University. Zipporah is faculty in residence for community engagement for PSU's Office of Academic Innovation. Farnell is an educator in the jazz department there. He is also a professional jazz musician. If you're digging my background music, that's Farnell. He's performed with Aretha Franklin, James Moody. He's toured with Jill Scott and Bootsy Collins. Farnell's kind of a big deal, so I thought that was pretty neat to see that there was a musician involved in the effort of the site, and the fact that these are both university educators. So why did they start the site? Well, let's go to their mission. The site was started in 2016 based off of their deep love for teaching, their vision toward collective libertarian, our practices learning together as a multiracial family, and a commitment to anti-racist, abolitionist, and decolonizing parenting and education. They really wanted to seed and grow deeper conversations and opportunities for action around racial justice in their community. They wanted to explore ways children's lit could support grown-ups in recognizing and replacing and or communicating learned dominant narratives from K-12 school, filling those learning gaps in knowledge and filling gaps in foundational social justice and identity learning that may not have been offered to them or cultivated in them as children. So when I read that, I was like, whoa, that is right on with what we are learning in this class here at Mason. So what's really neat about this site? The basis of the site is that it provides reading guides. So you'll see up here at the top the link for the reading guides, 2 different levels of reading books. The reading guides are provided by some part-time staff, but what I thought was really cool is some of the reading guides are provided by students in the capstone anti-bias K-12 education department there at Portland State. So there's students like us who contribute as well. So let's look quickly at the picture book reading guides. So they have these people in the field write these reading guides, which let's click on one. For example, When We Were Alone by David Robertson. They give you the book cover. They give you an option to buy the reading guide that they have written. But they also give you some general information that's helpful. An introduction, give you the general book themes, a summary, a link to buy the book if you like, and also a read aloud is usually linked. The link for this read aloud is busted, so that's not a great example for this one, but most of them, I've been through the site and most of them are live links and good, so it is a reliable site. And then they give you a little preview of the reading guide. So if you wanted to purchase the guide, you would just click on that link up at the top. When We Were Alone reading guide PDF, buy now, add it to your cart and pay for it, and off you go. You would be downloading it in an instant. So they do have a few free reading guides on their site, and to give you an example, I will bring one up. Gosh, I just had it here. I'll go back and pull it back up. Here we go. So I was able to download the free reading guide for a book called Milo Imagines the World by Matt de la Peña. It's actually an interesting book about incarceration. It deals with the incarceration of a parent and how the children in the story process that incarceration and that separation from their parent. Let me close that for a second. So here's a sample of what you would get for your $5. You get a little intro, some heads up about content that you might want to deliver before reading, their idea of what you should cover there, the main themes. They give you a link to the read aloud, and then they give you a summary plus a note, the cover art, and then they tell you how they design their reading guides. And so they work alongside the standards at Social Justice Standards from Learning for Justice. I'll click on that quickly. So here you'll see this is a framework. It's actually pretty similar to the framework we were using to evaluate our selected text from a catalog for this particular assignment. But this one is, instead of having the 10 guidelines like we worked with, this one is pretty in-depth for each grade level. If we scroll down a bit, gives you a bit of background, you'll see they break down the different content areas. So let's look at K through 2, because that's what this picture book would be for. And here you go. You get anchor standards and domains across all the different age groups, and then they break it down by level. So they have points in identity, points in diversity, standards in justice, and standards in action. I think those were the 4. And then in the reading guide, they will actually reference these different codes to let you know what particular standard they feel that the book is addressing. So let's go back to that reading guide. There it is. Okay. They tell you a little bit about how to use the guide, a couple of topics you could use alongside the book to introduce with the book. But here you go. Here's your social justice standards feature breakdown where, like I said, they give you the category of the standard there, identity K through 2. This is the 0.5. This is the 5th one. So I guess this book didn't hit 1 through 4, but it did hit 5. So anyway, they give you the learning goal for that particular point. And then they tell you how the book meets that learning goal there. Okay. Right, so here it says Milo's mother is in prison, which may be a different family scenario than some of his peers, but he's still surrounded by family love and support. Milo, his mother, and his sister prioritize time together, even though they are sometimes apart. And they all look forward to a day when they are united at home together. So they go through all the standards that they believe that the book hits, and they actually illustrate how the book hits those standards. They also point out if the book hits a movement. So here the book hits radical imagination, which is a movement in anti-bias movements. And so they tell you at what point those things are hit in the book, and then they'll give you questions. So let me keep going here. So here are your discussion questions. Things to do before reading, what to do with the front cover. It really breaks down the lesson sort of as we are supposed to be doing it for our own books that we've chosen, and what points those questions hit as well. And then as you go through the lesson here, you get resources, places to find out more about the author and the illustrator, and then a little section on artist activism, because the main character Milo is an artist. He's a doodler. It's actually a really sweet book. He doodles about all the people that he meets on the subway. He's living in New York City, and he's going to visit his mom in prison, and we don't know that until the very end. But he doodles about all the people he sees on the subway, and the last scene we see him give his mom, who he's visiting, a doodle that he had made and imagined of them together sitting on their front stoop eating ice cream. It's a really sweet book. Okay, and lastly, there are resources for educators to aid children with incarcerated family members. So these guys are really going above and beyond on giving places for us as educators to go if we have these identities in our classroom. And then in the next, at the very end, they give you what to read next. So another book by Matt Della Pena, which is the one I'm actually doing for my Read Aloud, Last Stop on Market Street, and then a couple of others. So yeah, let me pull this down. Yep, so reading guides, they provide them in picture books, early reader, middle reader, young adult, and the community collab is just a spot for members of the site to contribute their reading guides if you would like to become a member, which you can do over here as well. And then they have books you can shop, you can buy merch. It really is a solid site for finding anti-bias books and just familiarizing yourself with children's literature, specifically anti-bias children's literature, and the issues that we should be talking about in our classrooms.